For the first time in American history, a former president surrendered to law enforcement and was arrested.
President Trump.
The arraignment of Donald Trump on Tuesday pushed the American criminal justice system into uncharted territory, putting the rules and procedures of the law to the test.
It's a witch hunt, that's all it is. The witch hunt, as I call it. Russian witch hunt. This is a witch hunt like nobody's ever seen before. You know, I call it a witch hunt. And it is a witch hunt.
Are you a good witch or a bad witch?
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office announced charges against Donald Trump for allegedly making hush money payments to suppress accounts of his alleged extramarital affairs, making him the first former president to face criminal charges.
Taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy.
It's not been easy for me. It has not been easy for me. And, you know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
Prosecutors in Manhattan, led by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, charged Donald Trump with 34 counts of felony fraud related to the falsification of business records in connection with a catch-and-kill scheme aimed at suppressing negative news stories about him prior to the 2016 election. Michael Cohen, a former personal lawyer for Donald Trump, is alleged to have paid adult film star Stormy Daniels $130,000 in exchange for her silence during the campaign about an affair she claims to have had with Trump.
This is not revenge, right? What this is about accountability. I don't want to see anyone, including Donald Trump, indicted, prosecuted, convicted, incarcerated, simply because I fundamentally disagree with them. This is all about accountability. He needs to be held accountable for his dirty deeds.
There are lots of labels, lots of political attacks, lots of rants on social media. There's only one word that Michael Cohen has always told me he wants from the very beginning that I started with him to this very moment. The word is truth, and I'll back it up by my own word, facts. Anytime you hear labels about Michael, attacks on Michael, just remember, we have the facts proven and documented on our side, and that's the truth.
Trump has denied both the allegations and the affairs, but he has acknowledged that he reimbursed Cohen for the payment that he made to Daniels. During his initial court appearance on Tuesday, he pleaded not guilty and described the investigation being conducted by Bragg as a politically motivated witch hunt.
This witch hunt is turning into a circus.
She's the witch.
Yeah,
that's right. She's the witch.
I was just about to accuse her.
This is crazy. I'm not a witch.
Ha! Then how come your laundry is always much whiter than mine?
Oh, I've heard enough. Burn her!
The charges, when taken together, carry a maximum prison sentence of 136 years under New York law. However, any prison sentence that follows a guilty verdict would almost certainly be significantly less than that maximum sentence. If he were convicted, Trump would almost certainly appeal the decision.
We are now. It's where we were today, in a city that was so great just 4 or 5 years ago. But now we're there. Spend time there today, as you possibly read, with a local failed district attorney charging a former president of the United States for the first time in history on a basis that every single pundit and legal analyst said, there is no case. There's no case. They kept saying, there's no case.
It is a violation of the law, in the state of New York, to make a false entry in the records of a company. In and of itself, the falsification of business records is considered a misdemeanor, which means that it is punishable by a sentence of less than 1 year in prison. However, if the falsification of business records is done to conceal or further other crimes, then it is considered a felony and can carry a sentence of up to 4 years in prison. In this particular instance, Bragg stated that some of those other offenses include alleged violations of election law. Cohen entered a guilty plea in 2018 to federal charges related to the plan of inducing an illegal campaign contribution and making an excessive campaign contribution.
Today, as you heard, Michael Cohen pled guilty to 8 felony charges. 5 of those dealt with tax evasion for the years 2012 through 2016, in which he failed to report approximately $4.1 million in reported income. In addition, Mr. Cohen pled guilty to 2 campaign finance charges, one for causing an unlawful corporate contribution, and a second one for personally making an excessive personal contribution, both for the purpose of influencing the 2016 election. In addition, what he did was he worked to pay money to silence 2 women who had information that he believed would be detrimental to the 2016 campaign and to the candidate and the campaign. In addition, Mr. Cohen sought reimbursement for that money by submitting invoices to the candidate's company, which were untrue and false. They indicated that the reimbursement was for services rendered for the year 2017, when in fact those invoices were a sham. He provided no legal services for the year 2017, and it was simply a means to obtain reimbursement for the unlawful campaign contribution.
Both counts stemmed from his participation in the conspiracy. The Office of the United States Attorney in Manhattan has not brought any criminal charges against President Trump, who it referred to as Individual 1 in the charging document that it filed against Cohen.
Yet last fall, I pled guilty in federal court to felonies for the benefit of, at the direction of, and in coordination with individual number 1. And for the record, individual number 1 is President Donald J. Trump. It is painful to admit that I was motivated by ambition at times. It is even more painful to admit that many times I ignored my conscience and acted loyal to a man when I should not have. Sitting here today, it seems unbelievable that I was so mesmerized by Donald Trump that I was willing to do things for him that I knew were absolutely wrong. For that reason, I have come here to apologize to my family, to my government, and to the American people.
Trump may argue that Cohen took the initiative to pay Daniels, whose true name is Stephanie Clifford, on his own. He may also argue that the objective of silencing Daniels and McDougal was not to assist him in his campaign, but rather to save him and his family the shame of public attention to alleged extramarital affairs. Cohen testified in 2018 that Trump directed him to pay Daniels, but Trump has called Cohen a liar multiple times. Trump could try to undermine Cohen's credibility by pointing out that he admitted to perjuring himself in front of Congress, which Cohen did.
What did the president ask or suggest that you say about the payments or reimbursements?
He was not knowledgeable of these reimbursements. He wasn't knowledgeable of my actions.
He asked you to say that?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. In addition to the personal check for $35,000 in July 2017, is there additional corroborating evidence that Mr. Trump, while a sitting president of the United States, directly reimbursed you hush money as part of a criminal scheme to violate campaign finance laws?
There are 11 checks that I received for the year. reason why 11, because, as I stated before, one had 2 checks.
And you have copies of all of those?
I can get copies. I'd have to go to the bank.
Trump said that the payment to Daniels wasn't a campaign contribution and that there was no violation based on what we did, in an interview with Reuters in December 2018.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Tommy Daniels? No. Then why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth around payment?
You have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
Trump's attorney, Joseph Tacopina, has claimed in television interviews that Daniels attempted to blackmail the president into paying her money in exchange for silence.
And I don't know since when we've decided to start prosecuting extortion victims. He's vehemently denied this affair. But he had to pay money because there was going to be an allegation that was going to be publicly embarrassing to him, regardless of the campaign.
In addition, Trump has asserted, in a post posted on the Truth Social, that the statute of limitations in the state of New York has expired. Typically, this period of time is set at 5 years. Despite the fact that Cohen has already been sentenced and spent time for other offenses, his history of lying could give fertile ground for Trump's lawyers to use during cross-examination, in the event that he testifies at a future trial. It is a standard argument that criminal defendants make against cooperating witnesses, and this might render any attempt by Trump to suggest that Cohen is falsely incriminating him, in order to try to achieve a light sentence ineffective. It is possible that the assertion made by Trump, that Daniels was attempting to blackmail him, is irrelevant to the case, because the accusation centers on his company's dishonest accounting of the payments as legal expenditures. The statute of limitations will unlikely be an issue, because it does not consider the amount of time a defendant spends residing outside of the state of New York. Trump made his home in Washington during his time as president. He has been residing in Florida since he left the White House in 2021.